Hey there, guys. I'm Steph, and this is Bobby, and we are on another episode of Between Two Teeth, Motorcycle Edition.
Motorcycle Edition. Where are we right now?
We are driving through downtown Dallas. It's the World Cup. It's a vibe.
It is a vibe.
Yeah.
It's a little warm.
Speaking of vibes, yeah, it's a little warm. The storm's coming in the distance. The weather's kind of in between. It's not hot. It's not cold. And today we're talking about control of all things.
Control. Do I have control issues?
Yes.
Oh, come on.
I think we all do. I think we all have a little bit of control issues. We want to be the, masters of our own destiny, so to speak. And Bobby, today we're talking about how does motorcycles play into that aspect of control in our own lives and our semblance of it, what we perceive it to be.
Motorcycling has taught me an awful lot about so many things that are outside of your control.
Tell me more.
Well, I was waiting to see what you're going to say to that. You and I, with adventures, maybe if some of you follow us, you know that we had a motorcycle breakdown in Morocco. That was a big ordeal.
Oh, that was a big ordeal. Yeah.
That involved language barriers, Ramadan, roadside.
It was an international incident.
Hostage concerns.
Central hostage.
There was a lot of
management.
things going on. And then just last week, we actually were out in California and had another motorcycle breakdown. It always seems to be me. Am I the problem?
Our history would suggest yes. However, when you break it down, there's not enough evidence to support that theory.
Yeah. Anyways, we've had a KTM breakdown, a BMW breakdown. We had it break down in a bad kind of area, poor cell service, not near a whole lot of people. Anyways, yeah, we weren't in control. The motorcycle was in control. And I think especially for...
the motorcycle is out of control.
Well, that's fair. That's fair, yeah. It teaches a whole lot of things. And frankly, part of why I motorcycled as a kid, blah, blah, blah. Is it dangerous? Yes, very much so. But I was a little too in life in many ways. And I say that, I think I was fearful of doing various things.
And that's
and fearful.
And that's a great segue, Bobby, as far as you're talking about risk-taking. And, where do we draw the line? We ride bikes all over the world. We ride bikes in all kinds of conditions and environments. So where can we draw the line between risk-taking and recklessness?
That's a really good question. And if hearing you talk about that makes me think about the saying of, I'm going to totally mess this up. You're going to have to help me, Steph. We're going across a beautiful bridge here in Dallas. For those of you who've been in Dallas, you see these, we're kind of switching over to the south part of Dallas now. Absolutely gorgeous. You may hear a little wind sound going a little faster. But, people have something like 2 days of their life, the day they're born and the day they figure out why. Once again, terrible rendition of whatever that quote is. Can you help me on that, or are you just going to let me go?
No, I wanted to let you develop that thought entirely, and I'm glad we went to the end of the road on that one. So I like it, and I'd modify it a little bit. I think people are lucky enough to get to the day we figure out why. I don't think we always get there. I think a lot of times life throws so many curveballs at us, we're just in survival mode. We're like, gosh, this happened, and I was just trying to make it, through the year. Or, oh, hey, this happened. Figuring out why we exist, and these existential questions, these philosophical value system that's in our head. Some people are not so blessed by life to be able to even get there. And so I do think it's amazing to get to that point where you can even ask yourself, okay, the day you were born and the day you figure out why, kind of a rebirth moment.
Do you remember last night we were talking about with your parents on the way back from a boating day? I made the comment, it's a great day when you get a chance to lay your head down on the pillow because it's not guaranteed. And your mom said, it's also great when you wake up in the morning. And I think living each day is an amazing way to do things. Now, getting back to the question of risk versus recklessness, I think risk mitigation is really important. And we do things that are very risky. I think I've said this before. I like to do risky things as carefully as possible.
Yeah, and, I like to tie in law on this. Some of the terminology we've used when we are in torts and looking at my battery just told me I was low battery, so there's that. So anyway, we talk about the reasonable person, and the reasonable person is actually allowed to take risks. It's calculated. What would a reasonable person do in this scenario versus recklessness, which is a whole category of liability unto itself. A reckless person is not calculated. And so when we're talking about risk-taking versus recklessness, Bobby and I, nothing of what we're doing is safe, completely safe, and we know that. We try to take a reasonable approach to most things, and sometimes we hit the marker, and sometimes I do think we try not to, go off into recklessness, but sometimes, reasonable minds may differ.
You just go through a red light.
I did not. You didn't see it change at the very end? Yeah, we really do. We try to do dangerous things safely, but as we know, even driving on the highway in a vehicle, that's something that we do dangerously as a society every day, but we have normalized the risk.
Yeah.
Motorcycling is no different. The risk just changes with the activity and the environment, the circumstances.
Well, and what I will say, some of the things we've gotten into, Nepal was not supposed to be what it was. We were supposed to go to Mount Everest on beautiful asphalt roads up to Everest Base Camp on the Tibet side. That's where I was going to propose to you. We show up after our medical mission, and they're like, now time for the motorcycle adventure, and we're not going to Everest. We're not going to Tibet. Yeah. And that became a very different adventure. And frankly, I was terrified most days, moments of most days in the Himalayas, because the roads were absolutely brutal. We didn't expect it. We hadn't trained for it. We got through it. You had your, I call it a crash.
Yeah, I'm right there. I didn't call it a crash, but it was. Nepal was probably more, it wasn't what we expected, because we really weren't bargaining on taking the risks that we ended up having to take to get through the trip. And that was, I'm going right here. That was something a little bit more than we were expecting. But, we did get through it, and we got through it safely, which is what we wanted.
The beautiful thing about motorcycling, yes, is that we're in, what's this area in Dallas called?
Bishop Arts District.
Bishop Arts. And we can smell barbecue. Like, oh my gosh.
So good. So good.
It is unbelievable.
So good.
I hear you on that, and I think there's probably a pendulum swing for lots of people that don't do things because they're absolutely terrified of everything. I think there's people that have absolutely no fear, and that's probably not ideal. Sometimes people look at what we do and think that we're bonkers. And I can assure you, at least on my end, there's several moments that I'm like, I'm fearful here. And it's tough doing an adventure with someone that you love because you're seeing them on the adventure as well. You're fearful for their safety too. So that's what it is. Anything else about what motorcycling's taught you?
No, I would push people to think about what moves them to take risks. What situations in life has moved you to, step outside your comfort zone and to tell yourself, okay, this is risky, but it's a calculated risk, and to me, it's worth it. That's what I'm curious in.
Going to college, going to professional schools are risk. Having a partner is a huge risk.
Yeah, I think life is full of these risks, and it's just your perspective on whether that risk, trickles over into recklessness.
And I think from my standpoint, what I've learned in life is that the universe often gives you what you need, not so much exactly what you need.
And I'd also say this is just from a failure perspective, like even if you fail, it's not that your risk wasn't a good risk to take.
Oh, for sure.
And I think people try to conflate those two mindsets. They're like, well, I guess the risk wasn't good if the consequences happened from that risk. Not necessarily. It can still be a good risk to take. It's just, it didn't work out. That's the risk.
Yeah, and there's information there. And in my own life,
and we call that a data point.
Yeah, exactly. In my own life, every single thing that's kind of happened to me has happened almost because of failure that happened immediately beforehand. So don't let it tear you down. All right, guys. Well, listen, thanks for joining us. Thanks for joining us on another episode of Between Two Teeth, a motorcycle adventure.
Over and out.